Hi, I'm Jesse Christofferson from the Mount Rainier City Council, and I'm here with my colleague Jimmy Tarlau. We both represent Ward 1 here in Mount Rainier, but Jimmy just won his primary for District 47A state delegate. So assuming he wins the general election, which I have every reason to believe he will be taking office along with Diana Fennell in January. And we're here today at Thomas Stone Elementary School gym at the first annual Mount Rainier Community Services Day. Jimmy, as you campaigned, as you walked the streets and the hills, what kind of community service needs did you see, and how will that affect what you do in office?
Well, that's a good question, Jesse. I think one of the things I'll be working on won't be so much as a legislative aspect, but as a coordination between us and the county and the state, that people often come and they have issues, whether it's losing their utilities, not having enough money to pay for their mortgage, seniors who basically can't get food. We have people who have kind of abuse issues, and people really don't know where to go. So I hope to be, as a delegate, somebody where you could call me and I could direct people to the right office. Now we have, the county has something called 311 where people can go, but I don't think everyone knows that. And sometimes I think, and people don't always like talking on the phone, so I hope one of the things to do is so when people have an issue, they can call me and call our office, and we can coordinate and send them to the right person. That's one of my top priorities. It's not so much a legislative priority as it's a question of helping coordinate between the city and the county and the state.
When it comes to underserved populations, sometimes they live a little bit off the grid. Immigrants from all over the world. We have a high immigrant population in your district, from Latin America, from Africa, from the Caribbean. How do you reach out to those people who are wary already of the government? They may be wary of either they don't have legal status or their family members may not have legal status. How can we reach out to them?
I think you raise a good question. I think in some ways one of the challenges that we've been doing community services work in our community, and I want to first of all thank you for putting this together and all these organizations, but often we can't get the people who we're trying to help to these organizations to come here. So I think you have to kind of probe about what organizations they feel connected to. Is it the church? Is it the stores? Is it the supermarkets? And I think it's almost like us going back and probing more. I mean, what are their connections and who do they listen to? Who do they trust? As opposed to trying to go directly to people who really don't trust some of the organizations, figure out what organizations they belong to, which churches do they go to, how can we get the churches involved, how can we get some of the store owners involved. I mean, people go to stores, people go to supermarkets in the community, maybe get those people involved, maybe have them encourage people, because I'm sure people, in grocery stores need people to have more money so they can buy the sales. So trying to find out who actually they trust, and then go to those leaders and then have them engage with us, I think is one way of going about it.
What do you see as the role of the state government in relation to other entities in communicating and providing community services to seniors, immigrants, people with low incomes?
Well, I think there are two aspects of this issue. One is the question of the lack of resources, and that's one of the things I campaigned on. I think there's just a limited amount of resources our county can do and our city can do based on property taxes. People can fund the kinds of services we need based on property taxes. So I think we need more money coming in to the county, into our district. The only way I see doing that is probably by trying to get some of the corporations and the millionaires and multimillionaires to pay more, so we have more resources that can be used for the county. So that's getting the resources. Once we get the resources in, again, it's a question of coordination. The county has a thing which we don't really know about in Mount Rainier called 311. We call them and they actually send a referral. So we have to figure out how can the city do better work referring to those referrals. So the question is, one, getting more resources, and then making sure people know how to use those resources.
And regarding, what do you see the role of education being in ameliorating our poverty and community service situation in Prince George's County and in your District 47?
So I'm a good listener, and I'm curious what you think.
Well, thank you for asking. I think we need to revitalize public schools. It's all too easy for people with disposable income to send their kids to a private school or a charter school or somewhere where they get great educations, where they have to, put their names in a lottery in order to even get a chance to attend. But when that happens, the public schools suffer. The public good suffers. And it disproportionately affects our poor communities, our racial minority communities. I think we need to be firmly committed at all levels to public education, and I think it's primarily the county's responsibility, but also I think the city can do a lot to support the schools by, in Mount Rainier, for example, we give grants to the PTO. And my son is about to start kindergarten here at Thomas Stone in the fall. And I plan to be very involved, help with whatever, landscaping, help with liaising with the county, liaising with the state delegation. It's a complex problem. There are people who know a lot more about it than I do, but one thing I know, we need to be committed to the public education, and that's the only way we're going to have any kind of egalitarian society, which ultimately I think we all want.
So I'm glad I asked you first so I could think about what I responded to. That was a good trick, you should know. Ask the other person first to answer the question. So I think some of it is the role of what the state does versus what the role of the county does and what the role of the city. So I'm running for state. I'm going to hopefully be elected to the state. And so the most important thing we do is a question of resources, how to get more resources into the state. So I think it's really the fact that we have trailers in, in Thomas Stone year after year, that we have schools, construction that's dilapidated. Also, Maryland saw the largest decrease in teachers per employee per student of any state in the country over the last 5 years. You just can't do quality education with large classrooms, with teachers not getting adequate salaries, and with dilapidated conditions. So for me, it's again a question of how do we put more money into the system so it can be used. Money won't solve the problems, but if you don't have money, you won't solve the problem at all. So for my job as a state legislator, I think will be how do we get more resources into the county, into the school board, so for the county to be able to use that successfully. I don't think as a state legislature we want to micromanage how the education is run. I think there's actually too much kind of pro forma, teaching on the basis of testing and things like that. I think we want more involvement of teachers and PTOs. And I really am very proud of you that you decided to send your children to Thomas Stone. This is a school that's sometimes seen as a challenge school, but you're completely right that if people leave the school system, it's only going to make it worse. I sent my kids through public schools, and they ended up having wonderful educations, that there's lots of stuff they can offer. It's just a question of, parents being involved and working with the teachers. So I really think that's great that you're doing that.
Thank you, and congratulations again on your election, and thank you for talking to me.